Hello and welcome to today's Lunch and Learn. Today we'll be talking about recycled glass that's used in coloured surfacing for roads, and it's just another great way to incorporate recycled materials on your projects. Before we start, I'd like to begin by acknowledging the traditional owners and custodians of the land and those of the land we are on, the peoples of the Kulin Nation. I also pay my respects to their elders past and present. Each week, as you know, we talk to different specialists, and we've got Aaron Whitehead on today, and Glen Caligari, our data guru from ecologiQ, will be talking to Aaron about the recycled glass. The session will run, as always, for 30 minutes with around 10 minutes for questions at the end. Just a little bit of housekeeping. So you're on mute. Type your questions into the chat or into the Q&A, and we'll run through them at the end. I'd like to welcome Aaron and Glen onto the screen. We do record this session and then it's uploaded to ecologiQ's hub, usually early in the following week. So if you don't have a link, you can just email us at ecologiq@roadprojects.vic.gov.au. But for now, I won't waste any more of your time, and I'll let Glen have a chat to Aaron. Thank you.
Cool. Thanks, Cheryl, and welcome, Aaron, and welcome, everyone. To start us off, Aaron, do you mind just telling us a little bit of background about yourself and the company, OMNIGRIP Direct?
Yes, certainly. Certainly, Glenn. Thanks for having me. Look, my name is Aaron Whitehead, obviously. I'm the GM of BD for OMNIGRIP Direct. I've been here for 3.5 years, and prior to that, I was heading up a trading division, importing and exporting recycled materials at Visy, which is one of the largest private recycling companies in Australia.
Cool. And OMNIGRIP does both supply and installation of the product?
Yeah, that's correct. So OMNIGRIP's primarily a road safety company. So we specialise in coloured surface treatments. We're a supply and install business, and we've been in operation for just over 23 years, and we've got a national footprint.
Yeah, cool. So Victoria and beyond, that's good.
That's correct. Yeah.
So I believe your product's been used across quite a range of, especially thinking about the Victorian, more local projects on the big build. Can you give us an overview of some of the key ones that you've worked on and the range of, I guess, applications that it's been used for as well?
Yeah, certainly. So we've got a pretty broad range in terms of applications. So a couple of the larger projects that we've worked on, 5,000 squares out on Plenty Road, which is one of the major road upgrades that we covered earlier this year. We've also done placemaking activities for council, and one particular product that we did was a hot print coloured surface treatment, which you'll be able to see there. Which was done for more of an aesthetic look out in Preston. And then we've also covered off a level road crossing removal project, which was out in Reservoir Station. And that was some 2.5 years ago, I believe, and that's still going strong out there as well. So it's a broad range of applications and client base.
Yeah, cool. And that's in addition to the standard coloured surface treatments for things like bus lanes.
That's correct, yeah. So we've got our core group of applications is the bus lane, which is the raspberry red, which you'll see there. I don't know whether the camera can pick that up. The pedestrian crossing, which is primarily in yellow. And then, of course, our cycle lanes, which is a recycled aggregate. And you'll see that across the network significantly.
Yeah, awesome. And I guess Cheryl did mention it, but what sorts of recycled and reused materials you're working with in your products, and is that the same across all of those different applications that you just mentioned?
That's correct, yeah. So our coloured surface treatment is comprised of a 80% post-consumer recycled glass aggregate. So that's our core recycled component. And on the volumes that we've been doing over the last 2 or 3 years, you're diverting thousands and thousands of kilos of glass from landfill, which is one of the key components of what our business ethos is, being safer, greener and better.
Yeah, cool. And what's the glass replacing? If you weren't using recycled glass, what would you be using instead?
So generally you might use a quartz or another form of a natural aggregate. So obviously we're working within a specification that DOT and Vic Roads monitor, and our ethos is about being compliant but also enhancing road safety. So we've been using a recycled glass for many years, probably at the forefront of that. Before the rest of the world sort of caught on to recycled first. And there's been a significant sustainability push in more recent years, but we've been doing this for many, many years.
Yeah, cool. Yeah, so avoiding the virgin quarried materials, which is always got some good benefits to it.
That's correct, yeah.
Do you think that the recycled glass in your product, is that considered business as usual in these days, or is that sort of innovative, or how does the industry sort of view it?
Oh, look, we believe it's sort of more about being sustainable in the current landscape. So we were innovative when it was first brought in. Obviously, we've got testing and various rigorous compliance items that are within the spec that all players in the market have to adhere to. We feel that obviously we've got a product that's recyclable, sustainable, and it's exceeding the specification parameters. So that for us is a significant tick. I'm sure there's other products out there that maybe are not in that bucket, but we believe that we've got a point of difference because we're significantly geared towards being a sustainable business.
Oh, it looks like Glen might have frozen. Glen's been having some issues with his screen this morning, so I'm just jumping in quickly until he comes back to us. Is the business is motivated to be sustainable? Are you having any issues with getting glass to supply? I mean, occasionally we hear that glass is maybe difficult to get, or is it in short supply or anything, or is this, sorry Glenn, just filling in while you jumped out.
Sorry, internet problem.
Yeah, so is
today? Apologies, everybody.
Just tapping into whether there's any issues around supply. I don't know if I'm getting ahead of you, but yeah.
That's okay. I can answer that. So the short answer for our network is no. So obviously we've got various manufacturing and supply chain agreements with our network that are rock solid, and there's no issues in terms of being able to deliver our material in a large scale. Cool. And have been doing so for many, many years.
Okay, back to you, Glenn.
Cool. Thanks for the say, Cheryl. And Aaron, do you think that the recycled first policy has increased the adoption of the recycled glass into your product, or at least built awareness of it?
I think, probably the latter, Glenn. So I think that the awareness and the general feel of industry to be able to do more recycled components within a total project, I think that has lifted, particularly in my time here at OMNIGRIP. It's a little bit more accepted that that's a requirement on these larger projects, and there's obviously targets that tier ones and the large scale operators have to meet. So from that point of view, it's been pleasing. There's always continuous challenges with the process of getting specified and working with designers to make sure that every component in a project is correlating to the relevant spec. So that's an ongoing market challenge, but I think recycled first has certainly been advantageous for us in getting the awareness out there of what we're doing.
Yeah, awesome. Yeah, I think we're finding that across a number of different components of the industry and different types of material. Building that awareness really gets people to think about it and just pushes the bar a little bit higher with each project as everyone tries to do a little bit more, which I think is really good.
Absolutely.
And so originally when the product was being developed and before, I guess, had been implemented widely, what sort of process did the company have to go through to get, allowed by Department of Transport and asset owners?
Yeah, so a lot of that happened before my time, but the primary focus was around obviously coming up with a recycled product that exceeded the spec. So within the spec, there's various skid resistance values that you've got to meet, and 5-year performance history, and obviously continuous R&D that most businesses will do. So meeting the skid resistance was obviously step one for a period of time. So there's a bit of R&D that went into that, and went into the OMNIGRIP system, if you like. And now that that's all been nutted out, it's primarily around the utilization of our recycled content, and then taking that out to market at a bigger scale to be able to divert more glass from landfill.
Yeah, cool. I think you said earlier you're looking at about 80% recycled glass content. What's the composition of the rest of the material, including the non-recycled components and what sticks it down to the ground as well, I suppose?
Yeah, so the OMNIGRIP system is comprised of a 2-part epoxy resin, and then also our 80% post-consumer recycled glass aggregate. So that's the core function of the system. So you're looking at for every square metre that you lay, you're looking at 8 kilos of recycled glass content that is there, therefore getting diverted. And then when any natural aggregate that and recycled aggregate that you broadcast onto the road, there's a natural element of shedding that happens with that system. So when you recover that excess glass off the road, you can then reuse that on the next project. So it's it's a circular economy for various installations up until the end of that 8 kilo block.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, no, it's the reduced part of the reduced, reuse, recycle. So
Correct, yeah,
considering that
exactly
as well. And I guess, why did you select the recycled glass originally? Was that from, I guess, it had technical benefits, or looking to really, I guess, push the company into that sustainability space? What was sort of the driving motivation behind it?
I think it's a combination of both, Glenn. So obviously the technical parameters are critical, because you can't meet the spec without them. But having the market be aware of the recycled content, many years ago, it probably wasn't as common, or to a lesser extent as fashionable. So that's developed over time. So since I've been at OMNIGRIP, the forefront's been pushing sustainability. That's what we all are here for. We all believe in that as a group and as a wider business. So that's been the core focus of what we're doing at the moment, saving lives and saving the planet.
Yeah, awesome. And obviously, as you mentioned, meeting specs, it technically stands up as quite a good quality product as well.
Yeah, that's right. So we've been very vocal in our quest to be able to have the specification adhered to across the network. We don't make any apologies for that, because at the end of the day, safety is paramount. So we'll continue to be vocal to ensure that the safest material gets out on the road. And if it lifts the standards of competition, then we think that's a great thing, because then everyone's safer.
Awesome. And just you can't talk about competition too much, I suppose, but you're obviously using the recycled glass at your company. The wider industry, is that something that gets adopted, or are you sort of leading the way in that space?
Look, I feel that we're leading the way. There's probably a broad range of alternative products that are out there in the market across the country, for that matter. Paints and other binders and quartz and lesser sized aggregates and all this sort of stuff. Policing that is a challenge for the network. I think there's so much infrastructure out on the network that being able to cross check that is probably a continuous challenge for the powers that be in that space. But we feel that we're at the forefront of the recyclable solution.
Cool. Have you got any trials or testing underway at the moment?
For our product, or for
for further products, I guess, that you're exploring?
So in terms of our current system, so internally there's ongoing QA that happens quarterly and bi-yearly, to make sure that all of the components are consistent from a quality perspective, and that's important to meet the spec. And in terms of new innovative materials, so we're currently, can't say too much in terms of location, but we're currently developing a high friction surface treatment solution that encompasses recycled glass in the blend. So we've got some funding to be able to pursue that from various channels, and are working through locations and application timelines as we speak. So that's a product that we think will change the market significantly.
Yeah, cool. And there might be some people in the audience, I guess, that are from the supply side, and obviously bringing in a new product to market, there's always quite a lot of stakeholders that have to be brought along that journey to build the confidence in the product. You've got just a quick overview of some of the people that you have to deal with when trying to implement one of those trials?
Yeah, so if you're looking at obviously testing and requirements, so you've got to have your GeoPave engineers, your ARBs, your Major Road Projects Victorias, these types of organisations, in and around DOT and your Tier 1. So there's a fair bit of development and testing that goes into that. We received a grant a couple of years back that helped facilitate the R&D for these types of activities. And those grants are, I think, as the sustainability factor sort of becomes more prominent, there's a little bit more of a push to have funding go to those things, to have continuous creation of new products. So we've been fortunate in that space. But yeah, it certainly it involves a lot of heavy lifting to be able to get these things to a point where they're comfortable to be on the road from all the accelerated testing that you do in a lab. And then it's about making sure that translates in the real world. And that's sort of where we're at now in terms of that journey.
Yeah, cool. And any sort of challenges or barriers, you mentioned the journey along the way, whether that was during initial implementation or I guess just you mentioned ongoing QA that has to be done, just those sort of lessons, incremental lessons that you learn?
Yeah, I think there's always, in any project that you do, no matter how large or small it is, I think there's a genuine expectation that you're going to have to commit to it, and there's going to be hiccups along the way. Not specifically with with installation, but it could be our product is obviously a supply and install game, but you're project managing, you're dealing with stakeholders, you're dealing with councils, you're dealing with residents. So there's a whole raft of things that go into managing a project. And I think from our point of view, we believe in the quality of the product. We don't see our challenges to be in that space. It's more around how you respond to the genuine challenges of doing a large scale job and how you engage with people along the way. We try and build our reputation around being a company that has the best product on the market, and then can deliver that with the right service and the right engagement.
Yeah, very good. And how about client side? Major road projects in Victoria or level crossing removals, whoever it might be, or councils, how do you find their willingness to adopt the recycled glass product over, I guess, your pure virgin products? Any hesitancy from the project managers in that side?
Yeah, I think it's a good question, Glenn. So I think the general, time lapse of how a project becomes to be, generally when you're dealing with major road projects or a council, that's sort of towards the end of the chain. A lot of the legwork goes into the specification component and the design and the drawings at the start. So I find that if you're in a position where you're in the right space at that early stage, then that helps through the process of getting to a construction issue drawing. Because obviously a lot of the tier ones that may win a contract, they're just following the parameters of the contract or the drawings, and then from there you work your way down, where we sort of push the other way and work our way up. So that's a general challenge in I think probably in the industry. There's lots of competition across all the categories, so that's the way it is, and that's fine. But pushing it at that level, I think it assists to be able to get that receptive nature at the end.
And I think when my internet dropped out, you spoke a little bit about the supply chain and sourcing the material, but just in case it wasn't covered, do you obtain your recycled glass from a provider, or do you bring in the bottles and crush it yourself? How does that work?
So we have a local arrangement here in Victoria, and our supply chain sort of tied up with that. So we own a manufacturing source that does that for us. Obviously, we have a couple of other channels in and around that assists us with getting all the materials that we need. But yeah, we don't see any issues in terms of supply or longevity to be able to deliver, on our volumes. That's for sure.
Yeah, cool. Yeah, if it's held up throughout the last couple of years with all those issues, then hopefully it should be pretty good going into the future. Hopefully we don't have the same sort of problems.
Well, yeah, the supply chain certainly copped a bit of a hammering over the last couple of years on a number of fronts. But I think that probably also assisted in driving a little bit more local activity in the industry across the country, because the reliance on anything coming from overseas was sort of hemorrhaged a bit there for a while. So I think that's probably been a good thing for the industry.
And you think that you'll keep using the recycled glass in your products?
100%, yeah. So we often get into positions where we might be tendering for work or putting a price forward, and you might not be the cheapest option in the game, and that's a challenge that our commercial people work with quite regularly. But we believe in our material, in the fact that it's sustainable, its life cycle, its longevity, all of these things that equate to what our business is all about. So we'll continue doing that, for as long as I'm here.
And sort of feedback you get from client side as far as meeting the life cycle that's expected and, you know, exceeding the DLP and all that sort of stuff.
Yeah, it's an interesting point. So obviously the specification sort of covers off 5-year performance history. So often you'll have a defects liability period that might not be that long. So that's a commercial challenge that you work through, but the safety of the people using the infrastructure is at the forefront, really. So it doesn't really matter how long the DLP is. You want to have a product that's going to last as long as it possibly can, to be as safe as it possibly can. So that's what we believe in, and we feel that we're sort of adding value to that part of the industry. That's for sure.
And obviously, the longer the product lasts, the less times it's got to be redone, therefore less material used, and yeah, good from the environmental side as well.
Yeah, so a general functional use of life is, you know, sort of 5 to 7 years that you'll get out of that. You know, there's probably cases where that may change depending on other infrastructure that's happening or other activities that are in the chain, but yeah, you generally will outlast the resheet program. That's happened on many occasions. And council activities, we've seen a little bit of an uptick in a lot of the placemaking activities with respect to using a recycled content on urban spaces and that type of thing. So that's something that we've been doing a little bit more of in recent times, as opposed to just the core business, which is pleasing.
And I guess just to finish it off, anything else you want to talk about? Any other last words of wisdom?
Oh, look, in terms of OMNIGRIP, obviously, thank you for having me on. It's been a pleasure. I really appreciate the opportunity. You know, OMNIGRIP is part of a broader umbrella of companies that do a vast variety of other road safety and specialist products. You know, PL line marking, stud lights, high friction surface treatment, exit signs, PL exit signs, that type of thing. So, you know, check out the website. I don't know whether there'll be a link to it post this webinar, but you know, omnigripdirect.com.au, you'll find me there, and I'm happy to point you in the right direction and get you in contact with any of our people to help you with a problem and give you a solution.
Cool. Yeah, thanks for that, and thanks for your time today. And I think we'll have some questions, but I just think, you know, at ecologiQ, we're really thinking about the highest use order of some of the recycled materials. You know, you get glass and you don't necessarily want to bury it in the ground if you can use it for a higher use. And I think this totally makes sense. You know, you need that skid resistance, you need the friction, and the glass does a really good job of that. And yeah, it seems to be quite a good use of the waste stream. So yeah, thanks for that, and doing some good work.
Oh, thank you. Appreciate it.
Thank you. Great. I think you've covered a lot. We've got one question. Presuming product is formed up on site, not precast, is recycled glass required to be stockpiled on project sites prior to use? And do you use washed glass? Previously, when we've talked about glass, people always bring up the issue of contamination or, you know, the runoff, but we've addressed that a few times. But yeah, can you answer those first couple? Do you need me to run over them again?
No, that's okay. So in terms of it's project specific, so we'll work out, you know, depending on what the square meters of the job is, we'll work out the equivalent ratios of recycled glass needed, and you know, we'll have that you know, in our plant and equipment to take out to site. So we don't need to necessarily stockpile that. We've got core inventory products that we'll keep based on the volumes that we're doing. In terms of the cleanliness of the glass, yeah. So it's not a it's obviously cleared and it goes through a sieve and a crusher, and it comes out as a raw glass, and then we'll color that glass, and it's colored through a 360 prism. So what can happen on when various other types of glass are colored, you'll get a color on the top, and then you'll get traffic activity over the top that wears away, and then you're left with clear glass. So this our process encapsulates the entire aggregate size in color, so it'll prism and glisten in the sun, and that's sort of how you know that it's OMNIGRIP versus, say, you know, alternatives. Right,
great. We only did have that one question, but I'm just interested if you didn't mention some of the infrastructure projects that it's being used on, but my understanding is it was used on Reservoir Station upgrade at least a couple of years ago.
Yeah,
and
that's correct. Yeah.
that by the Northwestern Project Alliance. How is that going? Have you checked on that? Have you seen any photos since?
Yeah, so it's holding up really well. So that was on the reservoir station. I think it was about 2.5 years ago now, Cheryl, if my memory's not mistaken. So that was on a shared user path. So there's a little bit of a path infrastructure out there. It was a significant upgrade, that particular station. I remember that vividly. And you'll get 5 to 7 years out of that comfortably. In terms of general maintenance, we probably didn't cover that off, so I'll touch on that. Not significant. So pressure washing our application at about 3,500 psi will clean that up significantly, and also just general sweeping with a blower or a commercial vehicle, and you're good to go. So you'll get that colour retention for a significant period of time, because you will get general wear and tear and grime from vehicular traffic on a road. So whilst it may appear that the colour retention is sort of diminished, a quick pressure wash and you're back in town. So and it doesn't sort of diminish the skid resistance value either. So that'll last for the 5-year performance life. So there's no issues with that. Yeah,
that's good to know. And I guess some roads do just get, some councils do road sweeping and washing, don't they? So that would bring that.
Yeah, some do. It probably depends on, it's probably budget specific for each council. We can offer a maintenance regime at a minimal cost to be able to manage that for people, but generally a lot of the councils will have a maintenance contract in place with various players. So that can be incorporated into that process.
And Port Phillip, the pop-up paths, I mean, a lot of people might be familiar with that given that it's near the beach.
Yeah, so that particular package of works, along with the work out at Mooney Ponds, so they were significant projects directly with DOT. Port Phillip was sort of 5,500 square meters, I believe, of across the network. So that was quite a significant project. A little bit of apprehension from some residents in certain streets, and we've sort of worked through that. And I think the way we've managed that has been pleasing. And I think it's lifted the area. There's a few challenges out there with being able to install that with permits and what have you, but we work through that and work together with government to be able to deliver that. So they're sort of the large scale projects, but we'll also do work out in estates and for councils and tier 2s, etc. So it's a broad network.
It's great. I mean, I think, I guess because I'm aware of the product, you do start to see it popping up. So, and it's probably a great one for people to add into their program of works. That's, I don't know if I say relatively easy to add in and increase the recycled content that's on their projects, which is what we're all trying to do.
Yeah, absolutely. I think a lot of the, particularly when you're doing an asphalting program, you might have a glass fines and things of that nature, built into the mix, and that sort of ticks a component of your recycled content. But our product, we believe, obviously diverts from landfill and then provides a safety benefit as well on top of that. So it's sort of a dual purpose, we believe. And there's a little bit of natural shedding that will happen post install. Our recycled glass is inert, so it's environmentally stable. So and there's a sweeping schedule that sits in the specification that needs to be upheld, and there's a timeline in conjunction with that. So we'll follow that to be able to make sure that that visibility is minimal.
And just one last question, conscious of time, but when it comes to end of life, can the product be, I guess, profiled with the rest of the asphalt and reused in wrap in future asphalt? Yeah, so you a little bit of research on that, post our initial discussions, Glenn. So you can do that. So if it's end of life and the road's getting resheeted, then it will just be sort of up into the mix and it'll go into fines. And it's a very, very small percentage of recycled content in that space compared to what you would be having in the density of an asphalt mix. So it can be done, but it's probably not going to be the core focus of what we're about. Our primary focus is providing a product that
will have a useful life to be able to be used and be safe for people. That's sort of our core focus.
I think the key thing with that is that it doesn't prevent that from happening. That it can just be treated the same as any other asphalt profile. So that's good.
Yeah, we don't believe it. It's the size of our install versus the general size of a resheet or a removal of a road it's sort of immaterial in that sense. So it's not going to have an impact.
It's great to hear that it really fits into that circular economy model, which is fabulous. Thank you so much for today. That was really good and really interesting. It's such a great product.
Thanks for having me.
Sorry, just next week we'll be talking to Mamade who worked on the Child's Road project, and we'll be talking about their use of coffee grounds. And you can even see from this photo the use of coffee grounds had a significant impact on the nurturing of the grass. So it's a social value enterprise as well. So it's a great one to be used. So that's next week. But for this week, thank you once again, Aaron. And thanks, Glen, for being the interviewer. And we'll see you next week. Thank you.
Thanks, everyone. Bye for now.
Bye.